mean, I can give me.
They do have like bins, like regular recycling bins and stuff, I think, right now. Right outside the door.
Do we have your power squeeze? User got input stand. Power squeeze. Yeah. And then
We still run
Pearson,
very strong in
I think. Please see me wrong.
Hey, we did this. That's what we thought this was important because there's so many systems in place.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. But yeah, sorry, that's why I needed to see.
Offers, a mover and shaker.
That's exactly why I was coming.
Wonderful. Thanks. You came to the right place.
That's good.
Good, right? Yeah.
Welcome. You want a badge? Get your badge.
Hey, just so you know, for that issue with the test knob, any of the intermediate issues are not fixed.
Nice to meet you.
And they can't be fixed right now. And I can give you more information on it, but
What? Any of the previous ones before?
the fix they were using is working something else. Yeah, they told me to stop using that fix.
Continuing to fill out an individual teacher for each now and teacher, they could have replied and let me know.
Hi, welcome.
So I think Brandon just did that last night. I don't know if he did it on your ticket, but last night I saw him respond on one of them.
Yeah, I don't know. You're making me nervous. Don't go far. Don't go all the way down to 3:30. Just go to like 3:24.
I'll talk to you more after
Okay.
and give you just more information so you have it.
I'm good. Hey, welcome. Thank you.
He said
Oh, I'm
he'd
sorry.
stop back his man was work. Appreciate that.
That is true. That's why I don't like it. I want to be like, I'm sorry, the tech didn't come back by.
They were not
I've
very
now
attentive.
said I'm okay twice. So that's we're jinxing it.
They're gonna walk away and everything's gonna like the lights will go
Sorry,
out.
we're gonna-
We did have a power outage yesterday.
Oh, lovely.
Or no, maybe it was Sunday.
Just across the city.
Yeah, for like maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Oh, great. Kind of
I
like
like those moments. That's what happens in school. And then we relate to what it's like in school. We go to Plan B. We're
Hello there,
seniors
welcome.
in your era.
John Walker with Pearson. Great, nice to meet you. How you doing?
morning.
Scott Walker with Pearson. Pleasure. Anywhere you want to sit, it's fine. Just make sure you grab a bag. Yeah, once we kind of get started, I'm going to migrate.
Okay.
And then you're going to introduce. You just said you were going to introduce.
Oh, I am?
Yeah, that's what he said.
I can do that. Did you want to say something? Okay.
I mean, I'll open my section, but you can go ahead.
I'll just say hi. Yeah, it's fine.
I don't have any talents
I'm not shy.
to share, so
I'm not shy.
I don't have a good opener. Well, icebreaking.
You know how that always looks.
I know. That's it. Outside? Yeah, 7th grade. Hence, maybe the per diem room was not for you today. You could say no.
Well, it was good for, I mean, it was
Hi.
time for the time.
No, I know.
And then I went to the district office.
We're trying to encourage people.
Enticing you with giveaways, yes.
Okay, Anne, thank you. Y'all have been so on it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's making me too nervous because you've checked on us so many times, which is great. I appreciate it. But I'm like, I can't blame anything.
What was the movie? Beetlejuice, right? You can't say the name 3 times?
Yeah, right.
Or am I dating myself by bringing up
No,
Beetlejuice
I
references?
remember
Okay.
Across the board, I terrible with movie references, which only gets worse once you're a parent. Is that in Daniel Tiger?
Mine's a Patrol, Peanut Rider, or Chocolata.
Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall.
They're looking at you.
Yeah.
welcome.
Spear.
Where you like to sit?
See, I don't even know any of those.
No,
right?
and a little
They're
tone.
references.
Yep.
Yeah, again, like this is the one part about my senior semester that I can still control like things Daniel Tiger's, you know.
This is Pearson.
Jojo. I have a daughter. Yeah, Jojo Siwa, remember?
Oh, JoJo, yeah. How old is your daughter? She's 4.
Okay. Do you have any older?
I have a 1-year-old. So.
Okay. I have a 4-year-old girl and she's not
discovered
JoJo yet, but she has an older brother who's 5.
Okay.
It is.
So she's into like Paw Patrol.
I wasn't looking for it.
That's the one with the big nose. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean I see people posting.
Oh, yeah.
It all started from like
No, I gotta go do that.
Who is JoJo? Yeah.
Because mine has a 6-year-old cousin.
And you're giving up your outlet over there. My goodness, that must be important to go over there.
Like the statues and I was like,
Oh, wait.
Hi, welcome. Someone with Pearson. It's a pleasure.
yeah.
To you.
Those are
To you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I've been up that neck of the woods quite a bit.
All right, quite a hunt day.
My grandfather had a summer camp in the Pearson Senator.
That's right. Everybody has a camp out there.
Beautiful.
I don't care if I go to South Carolina or Florida. Somebody has a camp in TE up there, close to it.
Yeah, you would think that there's like 9 million camps up there, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody has one.
That's right.
It's beautiful area.
You can also
I don't think I said hi to you yet. Scott walking through.
Scott Jeremy.
Pleasure. Where are you from?
Actually, teaching Pearson for
Glad you're down getting the trip across.
That's a nice city.
Yeah, we're all known as the across.
You rolling?
Is it time?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess it's time.
So why don't we get started then? So thank you for coming. Just to make sure, this is Pearson Integrated Technology session. And that's really what we're here to do, is to talk a little bit about, you know Pearson, hopefully you love Pearson. You're using a lot of Pearson in your schools. And what we wanted to do was talk about how we're a partner and how we are integrating with some of the existing systems and technologies that you have. We think that that's really important. We're not coming in with a square peg and a round hole saying, well, you must use and use our stuff and only use our stuff, and we don't play nice with everybody else. That's the whole idea behind what we're doing today. So we want to showcase some of the ways that we're doing that, some of the innovations, and also then leave plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. We also want to showcase a little bit of our intervention solution, just so you get a feel for the power of the digital that we offer. So that's the objective for today, and the 2 people that are going to walk us through that, Jaren Pester is going to be leading us through our platforms, and Melissa Smith is going to be leading us through the intervention portion. And at the end, there'll be plenty of time for conversation, for question and answer, and really dive a little bit further maybe into some issues that you might be experiencing. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jaren to walk us through.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott. Let me know at any point if I should turn the microphone on. I turned it off because I think it seems silly in the size of a room, but if you're having any trouble hearing me, let me know. As Scott mentioned, my name is Jaren Pester, and I work on our platforms team that really present all of our different platforms and our rostering and integration solutions. Our core platform in Pearson K-12 that presents our core English language arts, math, science, humanities programs. They live on a platform called Realize. Is anyone familiar with that platform? Hopefully in use in your district. So I'll spend some time talking about that. We're going to kind of take a journey through Realize as our platform, talking about how we look at the content that's available, the assessment that's available, the reporting that's available, the rostering that's available, and as Scott mentioned, really kind of the interoperability that's available. Our goal with Realize is to work in your environments and not to ask you to work in our environments. We understand that you have other learning management systems, student information systems, grading solutions in place in your district. So we really want to figure out how we can work for you. So that's my role. I represent that. I'll take us through the Realize platform. I am in from Chicago and super excited to be here. I was a classroom teacher in Chicago and coincidentally taught at Roberto Clemente High School, so it's kind of fun to come to Pittsburgh. But then I worked at the district office for a while, and now I get to work on our platforms team. So before I do that, and it's a small group, so I might ask you to throw your hand up too, but we're going to get involved a little bit. I want to understand who you are and what your role is within your district. So if you have your phone handy, and I imagine that you do, Or if you're like, maybe step one, if you're like, Scott, pull out your glasses first and then pull out your phone. Okay, glasses first. They might be on the top of your head, check the top of your head first. But you're gonna open up your text messaging and send a text. So you're gonna text to 22333. That's where you're sending the text. So open up your text and you're sending it to 22333 and go ahead and put in the code to help me understand what's your role in your district, school, or organization. And the first one is if you are a tech person, a tech coordinator, a tech director, or maybe you're the CIO. Second is if you're a curriculum person, curriculum coordinator. Does anyone press send yet? There you go. All right, the third one is if you are a teacher, maybe a lead teacher, maybe a department chair. And if I didn't put your exact title in there, the third or fourth and fifth options are just if you're a building level administrator, maybe you're a school level administrator, and we'll just kind of understand that. Bless you, the makeup of the room here. Looks like results are coming in so far. Not surprising, most of you are technology coordinators of some sort, maybe a building level administrator. Give everyone just another minute here. This one was free. Has anyone used this poll everywhere before? How about Kahoot's? Pretty popular. Does anyone use Kahoot too? But we don't have budgets for things like Kahoot. Do you have to pay at the school for Kahoot? It might be free if you have a teacher account. Okay, so it looks like most of you are tech coordinators. I'm not surprised. Will you raise your hand if you're the teacher or lead teacher, kind of more curriculum focused in the room?
Coach. So.
At a school or at a district? For the district, okay. Sounds good. And then a building administrator? Okay, in a technology capacity.
We're in a diocese.
Oh, okay. So a little bit of everything?
Yeah.
You get to wear all those hats, I imagine. Okay. Well, I'm going to run through what Realize is for a little bit, and then I like I said, I want to just go live and kind of answer some of your questions as well. Keep this really fluid and understand where you're coming from. But sorry, one more show of hands. If you know if you're using Realize in your school or district. No. Okay, so about half and half. So that's interesting. So Realize is our platform where we present within the world of Pearson, kindergarten through 12th grade. It's where we present our core programs for English, language arts, science, social studies, humanity. And the primary thing that folks are used to accessing within Realize is that's where they're going to go for their content. That's where they're going for their daily lesson plans. That's where they're going for their assessments. That's where they're going for their electronic version of the textbook. So you'll get a paper copy, but with every purchase you also get access to this digital copy. What I really want to focus on is how the digital can supplement the paper version that your teachers and your students might be using. So we have that content perspective. And then we offer assessments as well with each of our programs. Well, let's talk about content for a little bit. So the biggest part is that with our content is that we really want to bring it to life. I mean, the value of digital is that you can really find that value in engaging your students there. So we're bringing it to life. We're presenting it anywhere, so we're online for use in the classroom, and that might mean students using devices at their tables, like you have devices right now. It might mean teachers using it for front of classroom instruction or on a smart board like I'm doing up here. But it's also available offline if you're in the type of community that you can't expect that your students have connectivity at home. Then we make our e-texts able to be downloaded to a device so they can take that home on their device and they don't actually have to have that connectivity. Another really nice feature of the Realize platform is that we offer an early learners platform at the flip of a switch. So we'll default to the regular platform, but if you want to use our online tools with your earliest learners, your kindergarten, first and second grade students, then we offer that early learner theme as well. So we'll take a look at what the content means to you. We also make it unique with our content, so we're presenting the program that you've purchased, the math, ELA program that you've purchased. We always give teachers the option to customize the content. So we recognize that any purchases are not going to be used in the same fashion in each school, in each district, in each classroom, so they can always customize it as well. Then assessments. Assessments might be the most valuable part of our program. A lot of teachers feel like they have the content that they want to use on the regular basis, but the assessment is where we're really gaining the value. This is a nice quote that we captured. We scour social media for anyone who's using our platforms, and students are very eager to let you know on social media what they think of your tools. And so it was nice to hear that Sam, who's in 5th grade, says that and realize it doesn't feel like he's actually doing his homework. And that's what we really strive for is for our students to know. So we're all about assessments. We've administered over 1 billion assessments that are graded within Realize. what I want you to understand is how the value of technology can save your teachers time, and I mean, that's a guarantee that if you're administering your assessments online and Realize is scoring the assessments for your teachers, that's a time saver, right there. So everything is auto-scored within the system to get you the grading and reports that you need there. Okay, and let's see. The other thing we want to talk a little bit about is reporting, and I'll show you this live as well, but your teachers will get reports of how their students are performing on anything within their program, but then those of you in your roles who are administrators maybe at the school level or administrators at the district level, you have access to reporting as well, and we categorize our reports in sort of two fashions, usage reports and then kind of performance reports. So from your perspective, your initial goal might be all about implementation. So how are we going to roll this out to our teachers and help support to make sure that they're actually using technology? So you might be more interested in the usage reports at first, but it's the performance reports of, how are my students actually performing in these various areas that'll provide you the value for moving the needle with your students. All right, and then the final two things that we can look at today and maybe have a conversation about is around rostering and interoperability. So for rostering our solution, we have a couple of different options. We have a traditional kind of manual roster option where teachers can type in their students' usernames to create their rosters within the solution. And plenty of teachers in schools and districts still like that approach. We prefer that you use one of our integrated options. So we have two integrated options, one of which is just pulling your rosters on a real-time basis from your student information system. Did I hear maybe that you use PowerSchool? I heard it. Student information system conversation in the back, but it's true for any student information system. So our basic level of rostering solution would be just pulling your rosters on a nightly basis, really a real-time basis from your student information system. Our most integrated option would be to additionally do a single sign-on from that district portal or SIS, whatever your kind of authentication, whatever your main authentication factor would be. So a manual rostering solution, a basic integration, which is just integrating with your source system, your student information system, or a single sign-on option. So again, we want to work in your environment. So you tell us how you want your teachers accessing the solution. You tell us how you want to manage your rosters and student lists, and we'll work in your environment. Okay. Any questions there, since that part's really pertinent to your role, before I move on? Okay, and then the final piece, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in detail as well, is that this part's kind of really near and dear to me, because I can tell you how amazing our platform is with all the bells and whistles and how it'll engage your students and how they'll love our content. But again, we really want to work within your environment. So with that in mind, we offer a varying level of integrations. So how many of you are familiar with IMS Global or kind of follow along with some of the standards presented with IMS Global? For all of our integrations, we work with IMS Global. That's a kind of a governing body for these open standards for integration. So they tell us how we can make content portable. They tell us how we can make rosters and student information portable. So it's so that all of us, and all of the vendors at this conference, we can all be on the same page from like a third party. So we follow those IMS Global standards to present you with a Thin Common cartridge if you need a Thin Common cartridge, to present you with a Google integration if you're using Google. So again, we're really working kind of in your environment there. So with that in mind, I have another question for you, and then I'll show you some of the things. So can you let me know, pull out your phones just one more time, please. What, if any, learning management system is most widely used within your school or your district or your organization? So if you're just using, whatever digital solution is goes with your ELA book or your math book, then select other or select none. But if you're using Schoology or you're using Google Classroom or you're using Canvas, go ahead and give it a vote, because it helps us to understand, what your teachers are used to accessing on a daily basis. This one's kind of fun to watch come in. Okay. All right. So you match what we see in the market. It won't be a surprise to you that far and away Google Classroom is the #1 learning management system that's out there. It's free. A teacher can use it on his or her own. So we offer an integration with Google Classroom. And like I said, you match what we see in the market. After that, we see that Schoology is kind of the most popular learning management system, followed really closely by Canvas and maybe some Learning or Blackboard as well. But that's why we think it's really important to have our partnerships with those programs. So I'll show you what those look like as well. Okay, so any questions for me before I get started? All right, let me... Okay, you can see Realize okay now. So this is what Realize looks like. This is the platform that is available to your teachers and your students. The teacher and student view actually look really similar. That's by design. We want your teachers to feel comfortable with what their students see on their devices as they're navigating throughout the system. One thing that is kind of nice is that you can see in the lower right-hand corner we have a messaging portal, so we can actually push out live updates to teachers and users as they're using the system. And you'll notice that I'll be highlighting everything that's different about digital access than if you were just using, the textbook. So this is to supplement using the textbook, using the paper version of the teacher's edition and the paper version of the student edition. But here you can see this is greeting me by name, and it's giving me some updates both about Realize as a platform, and it can give me updates about my program as well. So our ELA program is MyView. We'll take a look at that program today. If we offer some nifty things within MyView that might be newly available or related to something that's really relevant, then you can get those alerts right online there. Okay, so I'm going to browse first. Any program that a teacher has available is going to be listed here. I mentioned that our ELA program for our earliest learners, for our elementary age students, is called MyView. And this is what the teacher's access would look like to that program. So we have a little list of getting started with the program. The students have an interactive book. This is really, their e-text, the version of the student edition that they might have in paper copy in their classroom, but then they can access online for more interactivity. And then they have each unit that's available to them as well. So if I look at each of these units, and I know the majority of you aren't classroom teachers, but you can imagine that what your teachers want to get to on a regular basis is, what should I do on, daily with my students? So here's unit 1, my introduction, and I might go into week 1 and check out all of my different lessons, and I can assign things out to my students. I can share an assessment or each of my resources there as well. What's nice about this is if the program as it lives right now doesn't meet the needs for your teachers, they can go in and they can customize any of these as well. So they can rearrange the way that we present resources, they can hide resources that don't work for them in their classrooms, or they can add some of their own resources to the programs. Okay. So in addition to all of that kind of core content that they would get, here's the lesson that I want to present out to my students. There will always include some sort of assessment. And this is where we really love seeing students interact with the tools, because it's going to give the teachers really interesting and actionable data. So after each unit, they can go in, the students complete this assessment, and get immediate results for how they're doing, right? So they can go in and complete that. How many of you have students who are taking assessments online? And I'll say, even if they're taking it once or twice a year, who has students in their building or their district who are going online for assessments? Okay, so about half, maybe a little bit more. It's always going to vary in frequency. Sometimes we see it on a weekly basis, sometimes we see it at the end of a theme or a unit, sometimes we see it just once or twice per school year. It's really kind of what I would say would maybe be a quick win if you're trying to get a digital implementation with your teachers, because again, the system's going to auto score these items for your students and give them data right away that they can act upon, rather than them having to do kind of that analysis all on their own. Okay. So in addition to just kind of the regular activities that the teachers could do, we also offer some things that are kind of a bonus when you're working online. So remember that we're working with our earliest learners, our kindergarten through 6th grade ELA students, and the teacher could go in and assign them to complete a game as their homework for the night, rather than having to do an activity within their program. We work really hard with our content teams to make sure that these are both, kind of academically appropriate, but really engaging for students as well. So you can see this one. This is a spelling C. What I'll highlight there is this comes up, is that you can, if you could hear that, it's allowing me to hear the instructions. You can see that we also have ASL instructions listed there as well. So we take accommodations really seriously for all of our different learner types there. No matter how your students or teachers need to engage there. And they can just click through this, kind of play some of these. Alright, so we're gonna. That was my ASL instructor there if I needed to see it. So I need to spell, cosmic, and I can pop my different bubbles. I can hear the word, spell compact. I can hear them say compact. I could repeat the word if I needed to.
Subject.
All of those different things. This one I think is a sorting one. I'm highlighting this one just for the amount of options that your teachers have. You can see in that list here. Here's all the different letter sounds that a teacher might need to focus on. So a short A, or the initial sounds in pig, the initial sound in moon.
Sound rainforest. Drag picture words that begin with the same sound as moon.
Alright, so we're going to drag picture words that begin with the same sound as moon. The reason I'm pointing this out is that I think this helps students in a couple of ways. Obviously, this is engaging for students. It's reinforcing a skill that the teachers, already taught. He or she, I'm sure, has already been focused on the initial sound in the letter moon. So I know that mirror sounds like moon, monkey sounds like moon.
Mirror.
I don't think a dart sounds like moon, so I'm going to move that over here. So that part is really, really great as well. From a technology perspective, I like that it's also helping our students with those keyboard skills of actually doing the drag and drop. They're going to see that on assessments later in their life, whether it's at the beginning or the end. And those aren't skills necessarily that are taught in the classroom. And sometimes if they are taught, it's taught in a test setting, which is really intimidating to answer a drag and drop assessment question. But if we're teaching our students to play a game and do the skill of dragging and dropping this icon to different areas. Now, I'm working from my laptop here. That's a different skill than holding down a mouse, which is a different skill than if you have touchscreen devices and you need to do any sort of drag and drop. So, it's the digital component of all of these programs, I just think has a value that's not always as obvious to those who are purchasing a program. We purchase an English language arts program based on the pedagogy and the research and the experts that are involved, but these digital solutions can really add value to our students' experience as well. Great, any questions so far? Yeah.
Can you push this out to iPads and Chromebooks, stuff like that, for the kids to work on?
Yeah, so we are compatible with all those different devices that you mentioned. Chromebooks, man, and I have fun because part of our role within our team, my team within platforms runs strategy, so we get to spend a lot of time reading market research. So, like, two amazing trends that are out there are the use of Google Classroom and then Chromebooks across the space, right? I mean, they're not going anywhere, and they're in every single school district, and you can't blame them, right, because of the cost. So, we are, I would say we're compatible with most, if not all, devices that are used in schools, but we'll certainly never ignore Chromebooks and iPads because that's what we see students using far and away across the district. I will say that we're not fully compatible with phones, and that is a little bit of technology decision, a little bit of a kind of academic decision. We have just found that so far the content doesn't render well on a small device, and we don't want to run the risk of evaluating student performance when it's not in the ideal environment and it's just too small on phone. So there are certain things that might work well on phone, but in general we recommend being on a Chromebook, being on an iPad, and that's typically what students are using anyways.
It's basically web-based, right?
It's basically web-based, although we do have apps available for those devices as well. The reason that we have an app, and the app is just available for the e-text, where the student is doing most of his or her work. And the primary reason that we added an app for iPads, an app for Chrome, is so that the content can be downloaded. We want students to be able to access everything. So you can see right here, I mean, you can kind of get the visual that this is supposed to look like the pages within a student edition. And this would be available via app as well, so that things could be downloaded to the device. We got some feedback, especially from our one-to-one districts where students were taking devices home. They wanted to be able to download just what they needed to work on that night. So if they were working from the bus on the way home from school, if they were working during Big Brother or Big Sister soccer practice and they didn't have connectivity, they could still work. So you can download and then sync back up when you get back online from the apps.
Yeah, I'm kind of leery about it, sending them stuff home, so, with the kids.
The devices?
Yeah, they even tell them what they're doing at home. I had one kid steal a laptop from the school, and mom found it about 2 months later up under his bed with his dad's video collection in it. So.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't too happy.
Yeah, I mean, it varies by school. You know, it's crazy too to see the range. I mean, there are plenty of schools that do not have devices for each student. There are plenty of schools who have some sort of policy around them. You know, you can use your device in the school, in the building, but you're not taking them home. And other schools where they truly are taking their device home every night. So like I said, we want to work in your environment, so you might not ever need the app because you could assume that they're working online if they're within your building.
Yeah.
Any other questions there?
Like a code we can go through and just look through?
Yeah. If you just go to pearsonrealize.com, let me go ahead and sign out. So the question, if everyone didn't hear it, is if there was a code for anybody who wants to try it. If you just access pearsonrealize.com, you can try a free, I think the button says like try a free demo today, or yeah, right here. So you're always welcome to go in and try a free demo. If your school or district is already using a Pearson program, and maybe just as an administrator you don't have a code, then we can, talk to me after, talk to Scott after, and we'll get you hooked up with a way that you can kind of check in to see what your teachers have access to as well. But otherwise, you're always welcome to do try a free demo today, or we have a YouTube channel as well. I should have had that pulled up. But if you just want to go to the Pearson Schools YouTube channel, we put a lot of videos out there, especially when we promote something new. How many on time here? I'm good, right? For another 10 minutes? Okay. How many of you, I know I asked at the beginning, I did the poll, but how many of you would say you have teachers who are actively using Google Classroom?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, most of you, right? I mean, and this is another one where it just varies in schools or districts. It's either Google Classroom is pretty abundant, or district has asked users to not use Google Classroom. So we are giving, sorry, I have not mastered typing a password and talking at the same time. One of the kind of biggest partnership efforts that we've ever undergone is that we partnered with Google for Education to actually be the first publisher to reach premier partnership with Google Education, which meant that we had enough users on our sites and enough integration points essentially to earn that premier partnership. What that means for your teachers is that any of the content that you just saw that was available, I was poking around, I saw some cool games, I saw some cool lessons, I saw an assessment that I could administer to my students. If Google Classroom is popular in your district or your classrooms, we link to Google Classroom. So it's a setting within Realize. So all I did, is be passing to have a Realize account, is I went under my setting and there's an account linking option. So it says your Google Classroom account is linked to your your Realize account. What that means for your teachers is that we will pull the roster in from Google Classroom, and that you can assign, when you assign content out via Realize. So imagine, I'm in here, I'm browsing my classes actually. Here's my classes, this is Realize, this is the Pearson program. These are my various classes, but do you notice anything different about one of these classes? Little icon that's recognizable. So if you use Google, this should be popular and recognizable icon. This Math Period 4 is linked to Google Classroom. So we call it out there with this little icon. So my other classes in Realize, I'm maybe not. What that means for your 4th period math students is anything that you assign via Realize. So if you assign them a test or an assessment, you assign them one of those games that I was showing, it's going to show up in their Google Classroom account. So I Classroom open here. If you use Google Classroom, this looks familiar to you. Here's all your different Google Classroom classes. The students go to Google Classroom like they do on a daily basis. The teachers go to Google Classroom. But you can see in my feed here for Google Classroom, it says, if you can't read it from the back, Teacher Jaren posted a new assignment via Pearson Realize. So I didn't go into Google Classroom to do it. I was doing my work in Realize like I'm used to doing. But from a student's perspective, it's really seamless. So they're going to see, hey, my teacher Jaren assigned me this digital quick check. They're in Google Classroom like they're used to doing multiple times per day. They're used to doing it at home, whether from their school device or their home device, and they can just click into it. And this is redirecting them to a Realize window, but the student doesn't know or care. So it always gives them a 10-second countdown, and then they can, it signs me out. But normally that would just open the content right from Realize, and the student would complete it. From the student's perspective, they think that they're just working right within Google Classroom. It's pulling the content from the Pearson Realize system, and it's sharing the data back to both systems so that the teachers have the results both in Google Classroom and in Realize.
So the grades do pull over in Google Classroom?
The grades do, yeah, the grades do share back. So Realize will do the work to auto score the items. They're gonna, take a multiple choice assessment, and then it'll share the scores back to Google Classroom. Yeah, for all auto scored items. So those are things like multiple choice, true false, drag and drop, multi-select, those types of things. But yeah, huge partnership for us because again, like I said, I want you to have a takeaway of this is that we're doing our best to really work in your environments, and if your students and teachers are used to going to Google Classroom, then go ahead and go to Google Classroom. An interesting part about this is that at the top of my presentation, I talked about our different rostering options. We can pull your rosters from your student information systems. You can manually type in your rosters. We also pull rosters from Google Classroom, and this back to school is our first year doing the Google Classroom integration, and now 50% of our rosters come from Google Classroom. Like, that's how far and away popular it is. So for a long time it was from Power School and Infinite Campus and all areas and all of these student information systems that you recognize and use on a daily basis, but you just can't escape the power of Google Classroom from a teacher's perspective. So for this first year of doing this Google Classroom integration, now 50% of our rosters come from Google Classroom. It's a big deal. Who are my folks who mentioned that they use Schoology or Blackboard or another learning management system? Oh, okay, so just a couple, not too often. So I won't spend too much time here. But our other integration point, this is Schoology if you're not familiar. Imagine that it's Canvas, imagine that it's Blackboard, imagine that it's Learning. It doesn't matter what learning management system it is, but we can also offer any of our content or any of our programs via a thin common cartridge, which means that it could be ingested into your learning management system. So just like your teachers are used to going to Google Classroom, they could access their Realize content there. They're used to going to Schoology, they could access their content there. And you can click in and see that this, although it's the Schoology wrapper, anything that's appearing here is actually Pearson Realize content. So I can open up, go into one of my assessments. These are all assessments from a Pearson program, but we just allow it to integrate via a Schoology integration or via any of these learning management systems. So I could assign this out to my students. Maybe they need to take this balanced practice test, and hopefully you're starting to see that again, it's the Schoology shell, but this would do the same thing in Google too. It's just pulling in the Realize content. So it's doing that authentication, it's sharing the data back and forth between Realize and your student information system, your learning management system, and your students and your teachers can interact right here with the Realize content, regardless of the point of entry might be a different learning management system. So any questions of how it relates to Canvas or Schoology or anything else? Okay, final piece, and then I want to ask you one more question is that let me sign out here and show you a quick administrator's view, because another thing that we are super proud of in the world of Realize is that, and I mentioned I can't talk with you passwords. is that you're not ignored as administrators. Whether you're a school-based administrator or a district-level administrators, you have a data view for how your students and teachers are performing. So a lot of these programs, when it comes to math, science, ELA, they have great views for students, they have great views for teachers. They don't always have a view for district administrators and school administrators. So you get a dashboard of what's happening throughout your district. And I mentioned that our data are sort of, compartmentalized into usage data and performance data. And that's exactly what you're seeing in your dashboard here. You can see the number of logins throughout my district. This chart right here is letting me know the number of students who are logging in versus the number of teachers. And the reason I think that's interesting to take a look at student versus teacher login is to help those of you, those who are in roles like yours, to understand if students are logging in and using the digital tools or if teachers are using it for front of classroom instruction. So if I see more teacher logins, then I would imagine my teachers are using the online platform for planning. They're maybe presenting it on a smartboard at the front of the classroom. But if they're not vastly outnumbered by the number of students logging in, then they're not actually assigning content out to their students. Their students aren't taking assessments or playing games. So it gives you insight into how technology are actually used in your schools and across your district. And then anything that looks a little bit more like a stoplight report is going to help school and district administrators understand how their students are actually performing on any of the assessments that were administered or the lessons or anything like that. Okay. So the administrator view cannot be ignored. Any questions there?
Can you customize benchmarking or anything for the assessment?
Yeah, you can. Administrators can. The question is, can you customize benchmarking? You can customize the cut points. So, well, I'll talk about customizations in a couple of ways. Administrators can customize the cut point, so if your red should be at a 60% or a 70%, that's your choice as an administrator, so you do have that customization. You can also customize assessments within the platform, whether that means adding additional test items, removing test items. You can also author your own assessments within the system to customize as well.
Question about this, I'm trying to log into it now, and I am a technology administrator, I am district, so I should have access, but whenever I'm logging in, it's telling me that my permission is denied. Like, it's letting you log in, like, okay, this is valid credentials, but you're not allowed. So did they go through a process, because I don't know how long I've had this, like,
yeah.
We used Pearson when there was, like, a sign-on for SuccessNet. There were certain, like, textbooks or certain things that the teachers, whatever they were using, whatever content they were using, they had different ways to sign in. So I don't know if that's the issue or like how.
Let's spend 2 minutes afterwards to actually look at your case. In general, teacher accounts, if we're talking about the various rostering options, those, if you're doing the more integrated solutions, pulling from your student information system, that's where we would be pulling administrator accounts as well. So it would just depend. But then
we have to set that up.
Yes.
We never do that. I know we need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe we need to get you set up so you advance to one of the more. I mean, we always prefer a more integrated option when it comes to.
And you've made changes, obviously, within the past 5 years.
Oh yeah, yeah, we've made a lot of changes in the last 5 years.
Probably is I missed a step somewhere.
Yeah, let's just.
Email and I just missed something.
Well, either way, it's good to check in, especially if it's been 5 years. Yeah, I mean, there's been a ton of changes, even just in the last year, and the reason, we have realized as our go forward platform, and you mentioned SuccessNet, some of the old platforms. I mean, we have old platforms that were flash based, and we all know in this room that's not going to last for much longer. So we're really happy and proud to say that our current offerings for K-12 core programs are offered via Realize, so that we're on kind of the newer interface there.
Jeremy, as you're making that transition to just a general statement. I'm an account general manager, and that's an opportunity when your district is going through and purchasing a new program. That's a perfect opportunity for you as technology people to contact us as well. That, hey, we understand we're not buying a new elementary reading program. We want to make sure that we're using the platform and all the integrations to its fullest capacity. So please keep in touch with us. We love hearing from the tech people. So often we only work with curriculum. We would love to also work with you as well.
And that's the other problem, when you're working with curriculum and they don't let us know until then we miss out on an opportunity that it would have been like, because I'm not sure how the teachers are using it. I know they are. I just don't know how and what capacity, and I know at one point in time I was in there doing something and thinking, maybe I just don't even worry about it.
Certainly
But if
adoption
you're
is
doing Google, I mean, it would be, I think the teachers would really appreciate if there's something that we need to do to set that up that it's more smoother for them, that they don't have to have each kid go out and create a special account for it.
Right.
You know, I mean, if they're just using the single sign-on on Google, teachers would love that, and it's so much quicker in their classrooms to be able to get kids to sign in and all that.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure it's smooth.
Yeah, we want and we want to be having those conversations with the technology groups, because you're going to be the ones that we need your help supporting these implementations as well, and we need your help making sure that the Google integration is getting used in your districts if your teachers aren't aware. And we understand that they're going to you first with questions, before they are going to Scott or anybody else. So stick around after the presentation, we'll get you set up, or stop by booth 405 later today, and we'll get you set up as well. Okay, so one final thing before I transition to Melissa to talk a little bit is one more time with your phones. Here, let me make this full screen. We'll save some time at the end for Q&As, but I'm just kind of interested in what is most exciting or most interesting to you after this last 45 minutes of me talking. So, if you head back to your school or your building and your colleague says, what was interesting about the Pearson session, and what's most exciting to you? So, is it most exciting that all of our content is presented via Pearson Realize, or that we can integrate with your LMS or Google Classroom, or that from your perspective we have these multiple ways to authenticate and roster your programs? Maybe it's that the content was really engaging and that we have games and activities that might engage your students, or maybe it was something different, maybe it was nothing at all. But kind of what's your vote? What's most interesting to you? And far and away the Google piece. Okay. All right. Well, like I said, catch me after this presentation. Stop by. I'll go straight down to booth 405 after this too. Before I head back to Chicago, so that we can get you set up. If Google is the most interesting piece to you, we want you to be able to go back and kind of sell and share that with your colleagues. So thanks for taking the chance today to talk about Realize. And if I haven't said it enough today, Realize is our platform that's presenting kind of our core curriculum programs. But we know that for your teachers and your students of various level, that core isn't always enough. The core math program, there's a lot of opportunity to supplement that for enrichment or intervention or various things. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Melissa here, and she'll talk a little bit about our Success Maker tool that's going to offer kind of an additional support and opportunity for both your students and your teachers here.
Thanks, Jaren. I don't want to take up a ton of your time, and I tend to talk a lot, so I'll try to jump right in and get going. Again, I'm Melissa. I was a special educator right here in Pennsylvania, out in the Philadelphia area for almost 15 years. And I was lucky enough that when I transitioned out of the classroom and into corporate America, I still got to work with intervention. Because that's near and dear to my heart, special ed. The great thing for you all to take back to your schools is that this program that I'm going to share with you, one, it's primarily digital, but it's not just intervention in the sense of supporting our students that are struggling. It can be used with all of our students, both to support students that are struggling, support students in the everyday classroom that are right on track, and to accelerate students that are advanced. Okay? I want to say, stop me and ask questions, but I also want to be mindful of time, so I'll save time at the end for questions, and then I also will be down at booth 405. If anything really jumps out at you, if you'd like to see a live demo, we can certainly go into the program down at the booth 405. Okay? All right, so a few key takeaways for Success Maker that I want you to remember when you walk out of here is that there is an initial placement in Success Maker. It's stress-free in the sense that it does not look any different than when your students are working in the program 6 months after finishing their initial placement, 6 weeks, 6 months. Their initial placement looks identical to working in the program, answering the questions in the program. You will see automated course adaption as your students are working through the program, both for our math and our reading, and I'll highlight that for you. It is, I think I forgot to mention this on the first slide, it is math and reading K-8. For struggling students, you can see it used beyond 8th grade. You can use that automation that's happening and the adaptivity to custom courses based on your Common Core, based on your Pennsylvania State Core standards, based on your core program. So if you're using Envision, if you're using MyView, you can also use it to drive your decisions that you're making in the classroom. I'll highlight a particular report called the Mastery Report that will show you how you can use the data. There are tons of reports available. Off the top of my head, I think there's about 6 or 7 different reporting options that you can look at. We'll take a look at 2 of them just to show you what that looks like. The last report that we'll take a look at is prescriptive scheduling, and I think that you'll be quite interested in seeing how that can help your teachers. So we like to say that every click, every swipe, every response counts when you're in Success Maker, and what that looks like is true adaptivity and automation while your students are working in the program. I won't spend a ton of time going over the instructional model for both math and reading, but I want you to know that while your students are working in the program, both in math and reading, the program is constantly looking at every response to determine if the student needs remediation. In math, remediation might look like sequential practice. When they're working in the math program, they aren't sitting and working on fractions for 15 minutes straight. Well, if you're struggling, maybe you need to work on fractions for 3 or 4 problems. Let's see if there was a silly mistake that you made. It might look like a video tutorial. In reading, you're going to see the same automation and adaptivity where if students are struggling, we'll bring in some additional practice, maybe fluence practice, additional video lessons. And the Lexile levels are constantly leveling up and down based on the students' responses so that when they go into the program on the next session, they'll be at their appropriate just right learning zone. As I mentioned, you can align with your core language arts or math program. So I know we have realized users in the classroom or in our session today, so that means that you are using some of the core programs. I come down and see me and I can show you, but this just gives you a look at, it's hard to see. Joke that Scott needs to put his glasses on. Even up here, I need my glasses. I'm just showing you that you go into standards, so you can use your Pennsylvania state standards, or you can go into Envision or MyView or My Perspectives, ReadyGen, and then you go into the particular grade, and you'll have access to all of the topics available in that core curriculum that you're using, and you can create custom courses. We've seen teachers actually go in before teaching. Let's say you're going to be teaching in grade 3 for Envision, you're going to be teaching subtraction with borrowing, regrouping, don't call it borrowing anymore. You could go in and use this to pre-teach before you go into the classroom, just to get an idea of what the prior knowledge is for your students and be able to guide your instruction a little bit. The uses of this customization are endless, not just to support students that are struggling, but to support your teaching as well, or your teacher's teaching. So as I mentioned, there is a slew of data that's coming to you while you're in Success Maker. Here I'm taking a look at the teacher dashboard, and I am on the Mastery tab. So at the top we have our goals, our Mastery students, courseware, and resources. While I'm in the Mastery tab, I have the option, see this little box up here where it says Pennsylvania State Standards? I'm looking at our ELA standards. I can change that. I can toggle down and switch between math and reading. I can look at Success Maker content. I would also be able to look at my core curriculum content. And I can look at a group of students, I can look at an entire class, I can look at an entire grade. I can see everything that grouping of students that I've selected has worked on in Success Maker. right now, I'm looking at a 5th grade class. I wanted to show you that if I was live in the program, I would be able to navigate up and down. If you see, right over here, that's my little icon that I would, or my dragger that I would slide up and down. I have students that are working below a 5th grade level. I actually had students that were working at kindergarten level. So I can go and see what all of my students are working on in all of the content, because obviously not all of our students are going to be working on the same thing. So we can go in and click what we say. If it's colorful, it's clickable. So you see the red, the yellow, and the green. Think of a stoplight. If a student is red, they have not mastered material. Success Maker has tried to remediate and is not doing a good job, or the student is not responding. You definitely need to step in. I don't want to say the program's not doing a good job, but the student is really struggling. If you see yellow, the student is working in remediation currently, and the program will be coming back to it. If you see green, there are students that have mastered. So you can actually click right on this little bar, and you'll be able to see a list of all of your students who have touched. In this case, we're looking at know and apply grade level phonics and word analysis skills in decoding words. You can go in there and see a list of students who have worked on that exact skill or concept. You'll see how many times they worked on the concept, whether they've mastered it, what the date is that they mastered it. I think it's a great tool to use to pair up for peer learning even. You can see students that are struggling and students that have mastered. So you might be able to have a peer teacher work with a group of students or a student that are struggling. I really hate not asking questions, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, from here, let me go back one slide. Right down here, there's a little button that says Run Mastery Report. So while this is looking kind of like a bird's eye view of your entire class or a group that you've selected, when you click on this Run Mastery Report, you then go in and you're able to take a look at each individual student. So you're able to see each individual student. Now I have it right now set up so that you can see, I'm aligned to your Pennsylvania State math standards. I'm able to look at Rashay and see everything that Rashay has mastered, is struggling with, or really needs some additional support because he has not mastered. As a former special educator, your special educators in the state of Pennsylvania are already standards-based IEPs. This information is so powerful for writing IEPs, for holding parent-teacher conferences, for your core team meetings, when you're looking at whether your students are responding to RTII. It's beautiful. Can you download it, print it out? Definitely want to highlight that report. From there, the last report that I want to highlight for you is our prescriptive scheduling. Prescriptive scheduling will take a look based on a target that you put into the program. In Pennsylvania, you might choose your target date to be March 15th. By March 15th, you want all of your students to be at a certain level. We can give you the targets for the PSSA, or you may, if you're a special ed teacher, just have a target that you have in mind for a particular student. And Success Maker will actually, once you put that target in, will determine what prescription the student needs. It will say, okay, well, right now, that student is currently working at this learning rate, and they will spend this much time between now and the target date that you put in, and that's the level that that student will be at, okay? And the program will tell us, if you want to get to this target, in this case I put up 5.0, this particular student, Hunter, he needs 10 additional minutes a day to get to that target. So we can give you targets for the PSSA, or whatever the particular target is that your teachers may have for a student, and the program will tell you exactly what you need to get there. The results that we found for these targets are 98% accurate. They're being used across the nation, okay? I believe that is about all I have for you today. Again, I could talk for a lot longer to you all about Success Maker, but I want to be respectful of your time. I want to open it up for questions. Feel free to contact me, contact Scott, stop down and see us. Any questions about Success Maker?
Do you see that expanding beyond just ELA or math?
That's a great question. It's always a possibility. Yep. You know what? Another thing that I didn't mention, just because of time, and there's only so much that I can share with you, but we do have language translations for math and reading. 60 different languages on our math side with both text and audio support. Any other questions? But for myself, for Jaren, for Scott. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention this to you as well. Jaren somewhat touched on this, but it does live on the Realize platform, so you do have that single sign-on capability as well.
And Jaren, are you K to 12, right?
K to 12, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep, K to 12.
Okay.
Any other questions before we wrap? All right, y'all. Thank you so much for your time today and your participation. If we haven't said it enough, stop by, see Scott or Melissa or myself. Here before you head out of the room. If there's something we can help you with, down in booth 405. Scott is just Scott.Walker, right? At your email if needed.
Pearson.com.
All right, if that's easier for you too, that's an easy one. Scott.Walker@Pearson.com. He can connect you with either of us. It's easiest to take one contact there. But thanks, y'all. We appreciate it. We will be around and have a great conference. Anything else, Scott?
No, just thank you for attending. And I hope this showed a little bit about the interoperability initiatives. And please contact your AGM. It's tech people. We want to hear from you. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Hey, does that 325 also coming up? Next session? Or y'all have another session after this? Or?
No, this is it for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it is. F325. Is this F325?
No,
This is CC 325.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not clear on the signs.
You know what? I have a map.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, I don't know the layout. Yeah.
It's DLCC 325.
This is definitely CC 325. And whether it goes by the
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? Step out. Kevin, it's nice to meet you. I'm Jaren.
So I would ask about my integration with Fast. So currently we're only using Pearson as opposed to not using our assessments or because we're affiliated cyber schools, so our instructors are making progress.
Where are you from? Okay.
So we have live classes, we have computer assessments in our school, we use Pearson. We may see have trouble with it.
You'll see who shows up.
Oh yeah, it doesn't look like
So I just wanted to see.
Yeah, it's
They're working. Their history.